This is Teresa Weatherspoon, better known as Teaspoon, and you're watching Real Fans, Real Talk.
Live from the can. Vibe the can.
This is Real Fans, Real Talk. Real fans, real talk. We as real as you thought. Real fans.
What's going on? Welcome to another live edition of Real Fans, Real Talk. Fresh off of an amazing Subway Series weekend. I was gonna wear my Yankee hat tonight, but you know what? I said, you know, we did what we came to do, and I got to share that moment with my brother, and he was in all of his Mets gear, and I held it down with my Yankee fitted as always. And I enjoyed myself. It was good seeing my brother. I ain't seen my brother in a minute. It was really good times. You know, when the numbers kept going up, and then we let Saturday do what it do, but then Sunday we came back around and we did what we were supposed to do so we could take the series. I'm in a great space, and you know what? My brother's still in a great place because the New York Knickerbockers have advanced to the Eastern Conference Finals, and they got a good chance of making it to the finals as well. But before we get into all of that, let me introduce my co-host, my brother, Eric Sanchez, aka Legend in Two Games. What's going on, man?
What's really good, bro? I'm happy that you're happy. You know, you guys took 2 out of 3. I have no problem with that, especially since y'all couldn't beat us at all last year. And it's crazy that we're in late May and now you finally want to talk baseball, because you didn't want to talk baseball when we signed Juan Soto. You didn't want to talk baseball
No.
as we've had the best record in baseball. You know what I'm saying? So we still continue to have the best record in baseball. No, I'm just saying. I remember these things because it's crazy that right when the Mets are good, the Yankee fans treat it like, oh, y'all the little brother. But y'all treat beating us like it means something. So which one is it? Are we the little brother? Or
Sometimes you got to put your little brother back in play.
Okay. No, I know what it is. Listen, we're gonna see y'all when y'all come to Queens. We're not worried about it because, like I said, y'all didn't beat us last year at all. We played y'all 4 times. Y'all never beat us last year.
Well, that was last year. This is this year.
And when y'all come to Queens, we'll handle our business. You know, we're not too worried about it. We still got the best record in the National League. Our defense was to say the least. But 2 out of 3 to the Yankees. Kudos to the Yankees, but more importantly, the Yankee fans were amazing throughout the weekend. It started on Friday. The energy was great. New York City was on fire. As we happened to be out there, we saw the energy throughout the city and throughout Yankee Stadium as one person put it, almost like Bloods and Crips uniting. Yankee and Met fans were rooting for the Knicks that night. So every time they flashed the score or flashed a highlight from the game, the crowd as a whole went crazy. It didn't matter who you were rooting for in the stadium. So it was a great experience.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It was good to be out with the brothers. You know what I'm saying? Back out there and enjoying the game. Shout out to the Yankees and the Mets, because both baseball teams are doing really well right now. You know what I'm saying? So I'm excited about that. Glad we got to link back up. Let me officially say on air, happy birthday, Eric. You know what I'm saying? I wish you many more, my brother.
Appreciate it, my brother.
You know what I'm saying? But let's talk about these New York Knickerbockers, because I see the questions that started to come in. I'm gonna go straight to shout out to School Poop. So I'm gonna go straight to this question that came in from School Poop. Jalen Brunson is a superstar, but Halliburton is not. Stephen A. Smith agree. Yes, I agree. See, one thing is playing in New York, you already on a bigger stature than a lot of other places. Like, there's not a lot of places in the United States that you're gonna play in that's gonna be bigger than New York City. Winning in New York City is a big deal. You know what I'm saying? So and again, Halliburton, who's playing very well right now, Indiana, very small market. So you have to accomplish a lot more to get boosted to that level, because it's really about box office or not, right? We know we've seen the Knicks have years where they don't make the playoffs, but the Garden is still sold out every night, right? It's just different. Again, that's no disrespect to Halliburton, because he is playing very good basketball right now. But again, that small market, you have to do a lot more. than what you're doing.
I 1000% agree, and that's not a knock against Halliburton. You guys know I've defended him the last few weeks on the show with all the talk about him being overrated. I think he's a very good player. But let's be real. When we ranked the point guards 2 weeks ago, Trip, we had Jalen Brunson above him. Jalen Brunson this year is probably going to be a second-team All-NBA guy. Jalen Brunson, for what he's been able to accomplish in New York, which is the media capital of the world, is going to hold more weight than what Tyrese Halliburton has been able to accomplish in his 2 stops in the NBA. He started in Sacramento, now he's in Indiana. And so fairly or unfairly, it is what it is. The media coverage is going to be different for the Knicks than it will be for the Pacers. Now, if the Pacers win this series and Tyrese Halliburton is a big part of that, yeah, maybe the narrative does change and maybe we start talking about him as a superstar. But there's nobody in their right mind who's been watching basketball over the last 3 seasons and has seen what Jalen Brunson has done in New York that can say he's not a superstar. When you look at his playoff performance, this is a guy who's probably barely 6 feet tall, who's averaging 30 points a game in his playoff career. And when you look at his performance against Detroit with the signature shot to end that series, when you look at his performance against the defending champ Boston Celtics, there's no way you can tell me he's not a superstar, because very similar to Anthony Edwards last year. I'm not comparing him to Anthony Edwards. I'm not saying he's the same type of player, but what turned Anthony Edwards into a superstar last year? His playoff performance, the way he delivered for the Minnesota Timberwolves and getting them to a Western Conference Finals. And similar is what Jalen Brunson is doing right now. So yes, he is a superstar. Tyrese Halliburton is not on that level yet.
Let me go to our main man, Will Gordon. He got something to say. New York Knicks, Afro picks, Spike directed Girl 6, Pacers in 5.
I mean, that's cute, but I got one for Will. It goes, Wizards ain't ish. Y'all had the second worst record and still got the 6th pick. How many years since y'all been in the Eastern Conference Finals? 46. Knicks in 6. You got to worry about winning 20 games. Well, you can't speak to teams that are playing for potential championships. You can't speak to us, in that way.
Yeah, that's out of pocket. Well, we never gonna do that. I ain't even a Knicks fan, but we ain't gonna do that. That's disrespectful. Let's be clear. As well as Indiana is playing right now, this ain't the Knicks team that they beat last year. This is a healthy team going into the Eastern Conference Final, a team that also is featuring Karl Anthony Towns and Mikal Bridges, both who weren't there last year and have made huge contributions to this team and why they're playing so well. So I don't know about and that's not to say the Pacers can't win the series, but it damn sure ain't gonna be in no 5 games if they do win the series.
Nah, this is not and I got a lot of respect. I got a lot of respect for the Pacers. I like the Pacers. Again, I was one of the few people who thought they had a chance against Cleveland. When people thought, the Cavs have been playing so well. And I said, well, styles make fights. And then I thought the Pacers style was a great matchup for them. And I said right here on the show, Trip, what I said during the regular season, Pacers beat them 3 out of 4. Pacers can hang with a lot of teams in this league. I think this is going to be a great series. It's a great coaching matchup. It's a team in the Pacers who are built more on their depth. They love to play 9 and 10 guys. The Knicks, we know what the Knicks are. The Knicks are going to play their starting 5 guys 30-plus minutes. You're going to get some minutes from. It is what it is. We know what Tibbs is going to do.
That's a fact. Don't play.
Right. Mitchell Robinson is probably going to give you some impactful minutes, somewhere in the range of 12 to 15 minutes a night. Deuce McBride is going to play somewhere in the range of 12 to 15 minutes a night. And Tibbs ain't going to go deeper in his bench unless he absolutely has to. So it's going to really be about whose will to win is stronger. Can the Knicks do it with just their starting 5, or will the Pacers overall 8, 9, 10 guys, whatever Coach Carlisle decides to play, is that going to be enough to wear down the Knicks? But I will say, and I think the Pacers are better than last year, so I don't want to minimize what they've been able to do.
Yeah.
But I think the Knicks are a lot better than last year. You got to remember, this series went 7 games last year with the Knicks dealing with all the injuries they had, and that's not to make an excuse. But look back at the team the Knicks had last year. The second best player on that Knicks team last year was Dante DiVincenzo because of the injuries. He was the second best player on that team. Now you're talking about bringing in Mikal Bridges. Now you're talking about a healthy OG Anunoby. Now you're talking about Karl Anthony Towns. You also look back, Isaiah Hartenstein got the contract he got with OKC because of his performance against the Pacers. The Pacers have no interior presence. Karl Anthony Towns killed them all regular season. I think Cat is going to have another big series against the Pacers, and that's why I think the Knicks win this one in 6 games.
Yeah, Cat might wind up messing around and get the Eastern Conference Finals MVP just because he gonna have his way with the Indiana Pacers. It's gonna get ugly for them. Yes,
Yeah, he's gonna give him a lot of trouble.
yeah, yes, Brandon. Knicks fans, you can't tell them nothing right now. that's
I
a
mean,
fact.
but listen, I'm gonna say this though. Shout out to Brandon, right? But I'm gonna say this because it goes both ways, and this for any fan base, right? When my team was down, I had to take the jokes. I had to, you know what I'm saying? When people clowned on the Knicks and said whatever they had to say, as a Knicks fan, you got to take that. You got to be like, yeah, we trash right now. It is what it is. And Trip, no, there was plenty of times when we was in studio cracking jokes on the Knicks. I'm like, yo, it is what it is. So now that we up, I'm gonna let you know that we up. I'm gonna remind you that we up right now, and you got to deal with it.
Yeah, got to take the good with the bad. But I will say this, just not for you, Eric, but you know, some of these Knicks fans don't. Let's get to the finals, get the chip first. Don't go too crazy out here in these streets before y'all get the job done.
That's New York. But you know that's New York for you though.
Oh no, that's a fact. That way how it was.
Act like I've been here before
though. Act like I've been here. All right.
But we haven't been here before. So, so that's how we're gonna act.
Well, yeah, most of them wasn't born when it happened. So.
Right.
Trey Young trolls the Knicks saying OKC fans are louder than Knicks fans. I guess we should troll Trey Young because he's watching the players from the same place we watching the players from, right?
Yeah.
At home. Did he make the playoffs this year? He did. Was he in the play-in game?
They lost the playing game.
They lost the playing game, so he didn't even make it, technically. All right.
I mean, listen, OKC, their fans might be louder. I mean, they don't have the same type of celebrities coming out. Obviously, it's more of a college atmosphere than OKC, so maybe they are. But I mean, how would Trey Young know? He hasn't played meaningful basketball in like 4 years. He's still living off a playoff performance from 4 years ago.
Hey, it is what it is, and I think we basically answered your question, Brandon. Yes, I think we're both confident that the Knicks are going to beat the Pacers. Knicks fans still a little too hyped. They haven't won nothing yet. I mean, Eric just broke that down for you as well.
But
Jason,
go ahead. I want to say this too, right? Are we over the top with our celebration? Of course, but that's New York. That's how we are with everything. We're like that with everything we do. You're gonna know we're in the building by the way we present ourselves, no matter what. Sure. The irony is, though, a lot of people still don't want to admit that they were wrong about us against the Celtics. Because even in the group chat here, a lot of people was like, can the Knicks hang? And I said, I thought it was going to be a 6 or 7 game series. I thought Mitchell Robinson was the key because he had not played in the regular season against Boston. And there were a lot of people who didn't even want to give us a chance, which I said was very disrespectful. We had the 5th best record in the NBA for a reason, right? Yeah. Granted, we struggled against them in the regular season, but we never played them fully healthy in the regular season. So we were given no shot. And now that we're celebrating like a team that was an underdog, Vegas had us at a -900 underdog. What we're doing right now is no different than a boxer who's a massive underdog, and then he knocks his opponent out and he runs around the ring to let you know, I told you so. That's all we're doing right now. That's all we're doing. We're letting you know that we told you we could beat the Boston Celtics when nobody outside of our fan base thought we could.
Yeah. Jason Tatum tears his Achilles, a blow to the Celtics. He probably will miss all or most of next season. Can Jaylen Brown show out and lead next year? He can, but they're not going back to the finals without Jason Tatum being back to at least 80%. So hopefully he doesn't have to miss the whole year. But they got to figure out what they're going to do with Porzingis. Al Horford, you talking about is going to be another year older. So yeah, I think you know, even if they lose Porzingis, I think you know Jaylen Brown and the rest of that team is still good enough to make a little playoff run, but not to win the championship. They need Jason Tatum. They need both of them.
Well, he's gonna miss most of next year, not all of next year. Even if he comes back, which is possible, he's not going to be anywhere near the player that he was before this injury. Not yet, anyway. I think that's going to probably take him about 2 years to get to that point of where he was at. The Celtics, the problem with the Celtics, they're so far over the tax right now. They're a second apron team with massive penalties and tax penalties that they got to pay. They're going to have to restructure that roster, which they knew already. The question is, how much restructuring are you willing to do? Horford, they're hoping he retires. That would be a major help for them if he just retires.
That just comes off the cap.
Right, and comes off the cap. They're going to have to make some tough decisions because you have incentives for Peyton Pritchard because he's going to probably win Sixth Man of the Year. That hasn't already been announced. All NBA teams are going to provide kickers in the contract for Jason Tatum specifically. And so those things, potentially Jaylen Brown. So those things are going to hurt. After this season or going into next season, I should say, I believe Holiday still has 3 years, close to $100 million of guaranteed money. They're going to have to figure that part out because they would like to keep Derek White. Derek White has played very well for them, and Derek White seems to be like the perfect complementary piece for their big two. Yeah. But if they can't get rid of Holiday, then you might have to trade White or Pritchard because those might be the guys with the most trade value that you can unload and bring in some quality talent while still trying to lower your tax number. But one of the things I heard was interesting, and I don't think they're going to do it, but one of the ideas that's been floated around is if you know you're not going to have Tatum all of next year, and if you know that it may take him 2 years to really get back to himself, would you consider trading Jaylen Brown? And would you consider trading him with the hopes of bringing in a bunch of draft capital and being really bad next year, and then knowing I got all this draft capital, and by the time Tatum is himself, we have all these young assets that we can flip for an all-star or potentially draft another guy. I don't think they'll go that route because I think that's a drastic change to go from a team that was consistently playing for championships to then say, hey, we're willing to be a bottom 5 team.
Take a year off.
But there is new ownership coming in that building. There's a new ownership group taking over, and you never know how they want to approach it, especially if they can't unload any salaries. Because I don't think Porzingis has any value at this point.
Especially with the injuries, it's
right. He has no value at this point. Again, you need Horford to retire, so at least you can get rid of some of that money. If you trade White and Holiday, you're pretty much saying we're going to be bad next year anyway. So if you're going to trade those two guys, would you consider then tearing it down completely and saying, hey, we're willing to be bad for 2 years until Jason Tatum is fully healthy?
Yeah. Kobe says the NBA is praying for the Knicks to be in the finals. They don't want to see the Pacers first anyway.
I agree, though.
Hey, you want me to say I don't blame him. I don't blame him at all.
I mean, he's right because the matchups are very limited. Obviously, if you get Knicks Minnesota, they would love that because of the storylines of Cat and Randall being traded for each other, and Nova Knicks, and Tibbs used to coach Minnesota. If you get Shea in the Knicks, they love it because you have the potential MVP in the small market Oklahoma City Thunder, who and really the Oklahoma City Thunder are kind of like the young generation's favorite team because a lot of the younger generation grew up with Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook. So they love Oklahoma City, and they would love to have the small market versus the big market. But if you have the Pacers, it becomes very tough because the Pacers don't have any household names. The Pacers don't have really any marketability. And so imagine if you had to sell Pacers Timberwolves as your finals. That's a tough sell for the NBA. In terms of business, for fans like you and I and for our followers, yeah, we would watch it. But for the casual fan, you cannot sell Pacers Timberwolves as your NBA finals.
Yeah, the number's gonna go low. All right, let me scroll back up to the top. Let me start running through these comments. Hold on. Ron says, do you like the absence of dynasties of late? It'll be 17 different teams winning since the Warriors dynasty. The thing about dynasties is if it's your team, you love it. If it ain't your team, you hate it. But it's good to have both. It's good to have dynasties because you need that for the stories, for the history books. It's good to have them, but it's also good to mix things up and have a new champion every year. You know what I'm saying? But again, like I said, dynasties, when it's your team, you love it. And if it ain't your team, you pissed off every time. And listen, we got more championships than anybody in the New York Yankees. So I can definitely understand that.
Well, I love dynasties in any sport. I have a lot of respect for teams that are able to build the dynasty. But we also got to remember dynasties normally don't just follow another dynasty. Like there's normally a little bit of a break. Yeah. And that's what makes dynasties special, is that it takes a little while and then we get these great teams for 4 or 5 years. Or in the case of the Bulls, 8 years. The Warriors were a great team for about 6 or 7 years. So I think that the NBA is in a great space. Um, it's gotten to a point of not only parity but level playing field in terms of star power. Small market teams like Minnesota, Oklahoma City, and Denver can compete because they have great stars, but big cities can compete because they have stars as well. And then you have these rivalries. I think that are great for the sport as well. You see it out west. Anthony Edwards and what he's doing, and kind of the rivalry that's developing there between him and Denver and him and Oklahoma City. East, Knicks Pacers again, Knicks Boston now hopefully turns into something moving forward. So I think not just necessarily the dynasties, the rivalries make it better. The dynasties make one particular team special, but I think the rivalries are what able to keep the sport thriving.
Yeah, that's why I say every so often is cool, but it's also good to mix it up.
Right.
All right. Ron says, should the Thunder be heavy favorites of the Final Four teams? Yes and no. Yes, because if we're solely basing it off of this season and what they've accomplished and how dominant they were, yes. But then at the same time, from the standpoint of if they advance to an NBA Finals, the finals experience on that team is, got to be slim to none. So that may come into effect. But we also are talking about 4 younger teams as well. So they all kind of have that, with the exception of probably the Knicks, because you do have OG, who's an NBA champion, obviously with Kawhi in Toronto. And the other thing about the Knicks is why I say if they are the favorite, I don't know about heavy favorite, is the Knicks just finished taking out the NBA champions, and I'm not gonna take away from what they did because Jason Tatum got injured at the end of a game they already had won, which would have put them up in the series anyway. You know what I mean, to go back home. You know what I'm saying, and winning. So I think it should be kind of close. I'm okay if you give OKC the favorite, but I don't know about heavy favorite.
They shouldn't be heavy favorites. I agree with them being favorites. They have the best record in basketball. Obviously, they got home court throughout, so they should have the benefit of the doubt and be viewed as a favorite. But outside of Alex Caruso, there's nobody on their team that's ever been to this point before. So this is uncharted territory. That goes for their head coach. That goes for their best player. That goes for all their role players, not named Alex Caruso. So you don't know how they're going to respond to these games. And keep in mind, we saw it in game 1 when Chet Holmgren misses 2 free throws. We saw it in game 1 with the coaching mistakes that Coach Dagnall made and fouling too early. So you don't know how a young team is going to respond to some of these scenarios, especially on the road. Minnesota's a young team too, but keep in mind, Minnesota was in this spot last year. So they've got a little bit more experience playing in the conference finals and understanding, how the intensity of these games is going to change now that you've elevated to another level. So I agree, as favorites, they should not be heavy favorites. I think all these teams have a really good shot of winning it all. I think all these teams have something on the line in terms of like viewing where their franchise is going. Because yes, we're going to get a new NBA champion for the first time in a very long time. We know the Knicks haven't won a championship in 50 years. Oklahoma City has never won a championship unless you count what they did with Seattle. Minnesota's never won a championship. The Pacers never won a championship. But more importantly, for the Pacers, this is their second time in the Eastern Conference Finals, right? You in your heart, if you're a Pacers fan, you feel like now is our time. We're going to take that next step. Same thing for Minnesota. You were here last year. You feel now is your time. Oklahoma City had the best record. Now it's your time. If you're the Knicks, we just beat the Celtics. Now is our time. So all of these teams are going to be desperate to prove they can win. And that's why I don't believe any one of these teams should be a heavy favorite.
You mentioned Chet. We thought Pool's comment. What up, Pool? Chet Holmgren, a nice, solid young player. My question is, what is his ceiling? Can he become a star player? Yes, he can. He has to stay healthy, though. He's going to get the push as the next American big man because We ain't really got nobody else. So he's probably going to be our center on the next Olympic team. Whether he be starting or to give it, I don't know, because I don't know if Bam is going to play again or not. But he's going to be one of our big men on the Olympic team. OKC is a young team who's going to continue to improve, and he's continuing to improve. It's just, again, the main thing with him is he has to stay healthy, because what can stop you from progressing in this league? Injuries. So he's going to have to stay healthy. If he can do that, yeah, he will be a star, because OKC is not going anywhere, because you got to think Shea is not even really at it in his peak yet, and is about to be most likely going to be named the MVP of this season. We see how dominant they were throughout the season. They pretty much ran through the NBA this year. I think they were like 10 games ahead of everybody, or at least 10 games ahead of the West.
Yeah, they had the West pretty much locked up pretty early.
Yeah. So when you look at that, and the fact that everybody is young, and a lot of those guys are either on rookie deals right now, with the exception of probably like Shea. Yeah, he definitely has the opportunity to become a star. He just has to stay healthy.
He has.
He got
I
swag
think he has.
too. He got swag.
I think he has all the talent and potential. Health obviously is going to be the biggest thing, and if he can add more to his game, because if he's going to be this long, lanky player that he is now, he's never going to be physically imposing. So he's always going to have to be a pretty solid perimeter guy to kind of match. Like well, yeah, but see, the thing is with Dirk started to bulk up, and then Dirk developed a back to the basket game and a mid range game, and Dirk could beat you a number of different ways. He wasn't just a great shooter. Right now, Chet is purely a perimeter guy, unless it's an up tempo game, and then he's finishing at the rim and getting lobs and all that type of stuff. But he's going to have to add a little bit more to his game, because, like I said, he's never going to be physically dominated. So can he become a star player? Yes. But it's also going to be within the parameters of like, hey, he's a star player who can shoot almost 40% from three as a 7-footer. You know what I'm saying? He's going to have to bulk up to be able to dominate different ways, because the league adjusts, and the league will find a way to slow him down at some point. As his game evolves, the league is going to find a way to slow him down. And then that's going to determine how much of a star player or how high his ceiling can become, as Pooh mentioned. Yeah,
you know what you said about Dirk, right? He bulked up, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna name you a couple of other guys who we all thought had potential, but they had to get their weight up a little bit. And I'm not saying he's gonna get to their level. I'm just saying he needs to follow that path. Kevin Garnett, Kevin Durant, and Giannis Antetokounmpo. All of them guys, when they first came into the league, you look at them and think, man, them brothers is frail, but they were good. But once they got muscled up, got their weight up a little bit, they took over the league. All of them in their own right took over the league at one point or another. So he's gonna have to follow that blueprint. You know what I'm saying? Get his weight up, because he can play defense. He can block shots. He is a pretty good offensive center. He does need some more moves. Who I would like to see him work with is Hakeem. He needs to try to get one of them, get in with Hakeem, because he's a big man who has the offensive moves, the different moves that could actually help him develop his offensive game. And he's a defensive center as well, so he can help him on both sides of the basketball.
I think Hakeem, if Chet chooses to turn into a guy who will play more with his back to the basket, then yeah, Hakeem could definitely benefit him because of Hakeem's ability to show him the footwork around the rim. But again, that's got to be him willing to do that, because there were other guys who thought, oh, I'm just going to get with Dream, but that wasn't their game. Remember, Dwight Howard tried it for a couple of years, and it's like, but that was never your game.
Dwight wasn't really ever offensive like that.
I know, but that's what I'm saying. You got to make a commitment to that part of your game, absolutely. Right? Kobe, as a guard, made that type of commitment to play with his back to the basket and learn the footwork required. So that's what I mean. Chet has got to make that type of commitment. If Chet feels like, hey, I'm never going to be that type of guy, I'm always going to be a face-up guy who wants to play in space, that's fine. But you got to perfect that craft in a way that makes you damn near unstoppable. Because if teams know you're never going to play with your back to the basket, they're just going to put smaller defenders on you. And they're going to try to put smaller, quicker defenders who can just be physical with you. And then you're going to have to be able to shoot over them. And then once you're able to do that, then they're going to switch it up. But if not, he's going to struggle at times until he figures out his true niche and kind of perfects his craft, I think.
Yeah. Let me see. Okay. Tyson says OKC, even if they win or lose, don't they have a ton of assets to bring in maybe a star like player without losing a lot of their core? Yep, exactly. So they're going to be here for a while. That's why I say Chet definitely has the chance to develop into a star. Let me see.
Yeah, OKC has the perfect combination of star power and talent to win right now, with the ability to bring in another guy. There's been rumors, obviously, that Giannis may be available. I think that if OKC doesn't win it all this season, they will explore a potential trade for Giannis. Now, if they win this season, they could get greedy and still go get Giannis and say, "Hey, look, let's try to create our own dynasty." If we talk about
get our Warriors,
right? Let's see if we can add to what we already have.
Yeah.
But I do think Sam Presti has shown a very patient approach. And unless Jalen Williams really struggles in this next round, Jalen Williams is going to be part of that future. Now, if Jalen Williams struggles, he's one of their most valuable young assets that they could move with picks to go add another guy.
Or
Giannis, or whoever.
Devontae Harris says, if you're the Warriors with Kuminga basically was their best player last 3 games, do you keep him or try to trade him? I would trade him because his value is probably, I don't know if it will even be higher anytime soon than it is right now, coming off of what he just did off one round of the playoffs. And we know guys get deals based off of one round of the playoffs all the time. It happens. So I would say trade him now just because I don't feel like he ever turns into a franchise player. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think he's ever going to be the guy on the franchise. I think his ceiling is probably role player, starter, yeah. But I just don't think he's going to be the guy or the second guy on the team. So I would try to trade now while we still have Steph here and try to see what I could get, because like I said, his value is going to be very high right now, going into next season.
Yeah, I think they trade him. Draymond, Steph, and Jimmy Butler are all under contract for the next 2 years, which would lead me to believe that they're going to try to at least win it all within the next 2 years. Kuminga just doesn't fit that timeline, and he's their most valuable asset. So I would expect them to try to move Kuminga, or at least put the call out there to see what they could get for him. If they can add another veteran piece or another shooter, maybe some pieces off the bench. But I wouldn't expect Kuminga to be part of this team next year. Something's going on between him and Steve Kerr. Whether Steve Kerr doesn't trust him, whether they don't get along, who knows what it is. But obviously Kerr wasn't playing him much at the end of the season. He wasn't playing him much at the start of the playoffs. Kuminga did start to play after Curry went down, and Kuminga played well. So maybe it was their ability to just showcase him and say, hey, look, his value's high right now, but I don't think Kuminga's part of this team next year.
Yeah, I agree. Ron says, do the Celtics need to make major changes? I don't think they need to make major changes. They are going to have to figure out what they're going to do at the center position. Because obviously, with the contracts of Porzingis and Horford maybe going into retirement, you know what I mean? So they are going to have to figure out what they're going to do there. But everybody else is pretty much locked in for everybody that's important. I would say is pretty much locked in. You know what I'm saying, for at least another year or so. So they don't really have to. But they are going to have to, like I said, they are going to have to figure out what they're going to do at center.
I think they do got to make major changes. But not just because they lost to the Knicks. I don't want to make it seem like, they lost, so now they got to make major changes. I think their style of play showed that how easy it is to be upset in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. And even if it wasn't the Knicks, if it would have been any other quality opponent, if you shoot as poorly as they shot, if you struggle to close out games the way they struggle to close out games. And I think to a bigger effect, and I think probably the most shocking part of the Knicks-Celtics series was that in those close games, the Knicks seemed more poised than the Celtics, which you would think, you're the defending champs. You've been here before, but yet the Celtics seemed rattled every time the game was close. The Celtics seemed rattled every time the Knicks went on a run. I don't know if they just require a little bit more veteran leadership in that locker room, maybe the change needs to be a head coach, but they got to do something to shake up that roster and their way of approaching the game of basketball. Because again, for them to shoot as poorly as they did and then stay stubborn, there were a lot of people who kept saying the same thing. Brian Windhorst talked about the feeling in the locker room that there was almost a feeling of arrogance, like, oh, we're just going to keep shooting. And when the rest of the world is looking at you and saying, no, stop shooting, go to the basket. Like, you've got Jason Tatum, who's damn near 6'10", getting everybody who's guarding him is a shorter guy than him, and yet he's still settling for jump shots as opposed to trying to go to the basket. Jaylen Brown last year was the guy who was always in attack mode, always playing downhill. And for whatever reason this year, he was willing to settle and disappear at times. So they got to make changes to their philosophy and the way they approach the game. And I think they got to surround their two guys. If they decide to keep those two guys, they got to surround them a little better.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're gonna see what they do. Let me go to shout out to Imani. Imani says, is the Rudy Gobert story real? Are you referring to him putting out his wife and his kid, Imani? Is that what you're referring to? If you are referring to that, then yes, that I would say it is true, just because TMZ had it. And you know how Harvey don't be playing with that fake stories. He gonna do his homework. He gonna get the real deal. So if that's the story you're referring to, yes, that is true. But I did also read that he wasn't on some deadbeat dad stuff. He's trying to work out a custody agreement for their son. Okay, and Eric, what is Steve Kerr's love for Brzezinski?
Well, he liked him as a floor spacer. I mean, Podzinski didn't shoot well in the playoffs. So obviously it's easy to say, oh, what's the love affair with him? But during the regular season, it's a guy who shot almost 39% from three. And as we highlighted before, the struggles that the Warriors had, especially without Steph, were that if you're going to have Jimmy and Draymond on the floor, that's already two non-shooters. So you got to have spacing around them. Podzinski, Buddy Hield, Steph Curry were the ideal three guys that you would want around them. And when Steph went down, you're losing a lot of shooting, and you're hoping that the guy would work himself out of a slump. So I don't think it's love for the player specifically. I think it was love for the skill set. But again, it just didn't work out in the playoffs. Yeah.
And again, it is what it is. Like, once you guys tend, not all guys, but a lot of players look different when their superstars not standing next to them. And that's just, we forget. They say losing Steph Curry ain't like you lost the eighth man coming off the bench. You're losing one of the greatest players of all time. And again, sometimes that happens. Guys don't play at the level we're accustomed to seeing them play because they can't. Because it's easier for you to thrive when we have to constantly double team one of your teammates who's on the floor with you. So if we got to double team and damn near sometimes triple team Steph Curry, it makes the game a lot easier for the other guys around them. So yeah, it's gonna look good while he's on the floor. But now once he's not, and we can lock in and say, you know what, we really don't have to double team any of these other guys, because none of these other guys are elite scorers like that, where they just going to drop 50 on our heads at the drop of a dime if we don't double team them. So yeah, now you got the defense locked in on you. Makes things a little bit more difficult. So you either going to fold or you're going to step up. Well, what's it saying? You either going to ish or get off the pot.
Yeah, I mean,
you got off the pot.
It's easy to criticize Steve Kerr when they lose the series. But as you mentioned, when you don't have Steph, it becomes a burden on the other guys who normally would get some open looks, right? Podzinski never had to worry about, being double teamed or trapped coming off the pick and roll because Steph and Jimmy and them was on the floor. But without Steph, it's like, all right, we could just lock into the shooters a little bit more, and it makes it a little difficult. And that's also the curse in losing, because when you're winning, nobody ever talks about the bad shooting nights. Dante DiVincenzo in the first couple of games of that series did not shoot the ball well for Minnesota, but they were still up 2-1 after 3 games, and people forget that. Then Dante got going in game 4 and game 5, and you forget how poorly he shot. But had Minnesota been down 2-1, everybody would have pointed out, hey, what's going on with Dante DiVincenzo? This guy who was averaging 12 points a game during the regular season, and he was struggling to crack 8 points in the first 3 games of that series. He shot under 30% in the first 3 games of that series. So the curse of losing, all of your flaws become uglier. If you win, people kind of overlook the fact that you maybe didn't play well.
Exactly. Eric, we just got a comment and shout out to my guy Brandon Chambers.
I saw it.
I'm not gonna go to this comment right now because y'all gonna think it's me. We're gonna get some other things first. We're gonna get to it, but I just want to let y'all know from now. I'm giving y'all the warm up. This is not myself, nor is this Eric bringing up this topic, but we're gonna get to it because that's what we do. All right, we don't leave no comments unanswered. All right. Let me see. So I'm gonna go to Will's comment and then we're gonna pick our winners before we start getting ready to transition to the WNBA. Ant-Man Edwards, Bart Simpson wears a red shirt, take Excedrin when your head hurts, Thunder in 5. I got too much respect for Minnesota to say Thunder in 5. However, I do believe the Thunder could win this series in 5 games, but they could also win it in 6 games or 7 games. I think it's going to be actually a closer series than we think. It's a lot of talent, a lot of young superstars. These teams actually kind of match up pretty good. So, it could go either way, but I do have OKC as the favorite. As a betting man, I wouldn't put my money on OKC in 5, though.
I think it's disrespectful to say the Thunder in 5. Again, Minnesota was in the Western Conference Finals last year. Minnesota, if you want to say Shea's the best player in this game, the series, sure, but he's not far better than Anthony Edwards. I think he's just above him in terms of talent. And Anthony Edwards can take over a game and take over a series. We saw that last year against Denver. So I would say I like the Thunder. I think the series is at least going 6. I would not be surprised if it goes 7. Again, for the Thunder, this is their first time in this moment. And don't be surprised if after they just went to war with Denver, if tomorrow night Minnesota goes in there and steals game 1 and catches them a little fatigued after a very tough series. If Ant-Man and them go in there and steal game 1, I guarantee you this is probably going to be a 7-game series. And Minnesota's going to be right in the mix. I got Oklahoma City winning it, but I think it's going 7. You got to respect Anthony Edwards, and Julius Randle's playing amazing right now.
No, it's a fact. Let me go here. Kobe says Thunder versus Timberwolves. Thunder's our favorite, but give me some advantages many may have in the series. I'm gonna give you one right now. That's Anthony Edwards. That's a difference maker no matter what's the series. He gonna do his thing, and you better not let him go too crazy on you. That's first and foremost. But another thing I will say is, as far as interior defense goes, I would definitely give the edge to Minnesota with Gobert and Naz Reid, even with Julius Randle. I think Minnesota has the edge on the interior defense. I don't think OKC is just going to be going crazy in the paint. So there's a couple for you, but what do you think, Eric?
So a couple of advantages. I think athleticism. I think Minnesota hangs with them better than Denver did. Denver was forced to go to a zone to slow down that Oklahoma City offense. Minnesota won't have to. Minnesota's a very good perimeter defensive team. Obviously, Jaden McDaniels, we know what type of defender he is. Anthony Edwards is a very good defender as well. Their versatility in the front court, I think, is going to give Minnesota some trouble, because this is one of those series. Minnesota loves to pride themselves. Oklahoma City prides themselves on their depth and being kind of too deep at every position. But Minnesota can match most of that because they're going to bring Naz Reid off the bench. They're going to bring DiVincenzo off the bench. And I think the athleticism of Minnesota, I think their perimeter defense is going to give Oklahoma City a little bit of trouble in this game. And I don't think Oklahoma City is going to have any advantages on the boards. I think rebounding, Minnesota is going to take the advantages there, whether Rudy's in the game long-term or not, because, again, Naz Reid and Julius Randle both attack the glass. So does Anthony Edwards. So I think Minnesota can win the boards. I think they can slow them down on the perimeter. And I think Minnesota is going to kind of play the game of, they know Shea's going to get his, but if they can stop the other guys, if Jalen Williams struggles, if Isaiah Joe struggles shooting the 3, if Wiggins, if all those other guards that they're going to bring off the bench, if those guys are struggling to shoot, then it's going to be a tough series. And we talked about Chet earlier. I'm interested to see who they try to put Chet on, because I guarantee you, if they put Chet on Julius Randle. Julius Randle was going to play bully ball.
Okay. Scoop Hoop says, what did OKC prove this Nugget series? They're resilient.
Yeah.
That's what they prove. They can hang with it, but you want to, we can go 4, 5, 6. We can even go to game 7, but we coming home with this dub. that's what they that's what they proved. They're resilient.
Yeah. I thought they showed toughness and they found a way to battle through, and that's what you want to see from a young team. Remember this, tied 2-2. They had to get a gritty win in game 5. They found a way. They had to overcome a tough loss in game 6, and they came out. And I thought, again, Denver going to that zone really slowed down Oklahoma City's offense. They made it tougher. They forced Shea to have to kind of rely on his teammates to shoot. Jalen Williams wasn't always great, but in game 7 when he needed to be, he was very good for them, and they had to overcome that.
School poop again. What's next for Nikola Jokic and the Nuggets? Time to part with Michael Porter Jr. What do they need in your opinion? It is time to part with Michael Porter Jr. The only problem is his stock is probably at its lowest right now, so you're probably not going to get much for him if you move him now. So it may have to be a situation if you do need to make a change where you got to move Aaron Gordon, because he's really, I mean, unless you're planning on trading Jamal Murray, which I don't think that would be a good idea because he's actually balling for them. But outside of that, it's like, yeah, maybe we're gonna have to move Aaron Gordon because Michael Porter Jr.'s trade value is so low, and just hope he gets good enough to trade him at some point. But they definitely need some. They need some depth. They need some depth. And they need another scorer. Michael Porter just hasn't been getting the job done.
Yeah, they just need. They're going to need consistent shooting. Michael Porter Jr. unfortunately was hurt in the series, but he wasn't consistent the last 2 years anyway. Jamal Murray really hasn't been consistent this past season at all. So they need more shooting, of course. They're going to need depth because I think a lot is being put on Joker right now, and it's only a matter of time before his body starts to break down as well. Mm-hmm. Depth, shooting, I would say those are the two main things. And they got to figure out the coaching situation. Firing Mike Malone, firing the general manager, those are big parts of Nikola Jokic's future with the Nuggets, because who's coming in and what's their vision to build around this generational talent. And once they figure that out, I think they will be trading one of those guys.
All right. Looking at the Warriors roster without Curry on the floor, they look like a G League team, couldn't score. So what do they need to add? Because since Butler came, they probably had a top 3 or 4 record. I say a big man like Gafford type of and another scorer. Yeah, I mean, you pretty much said it. That's what they need. They need a big man and they need another scorer. They need a better presence in the interior. And you need guys that can score the basketball, that can shoot the basketball, because we were talking last week about it being difficult to play certain guys on the Warriors because you would have 4, maybe even 5 guys on the court at the same time and nobody can shoot. Mm-hmm. Because they don't have any great 3-point shooters outside of Steph. Buddy Hield is good, but he's streaky. So you can't really count on him. He's not on every night. He's not giving you, you know what I'm saying, that constant hot streak. There's going to be games where, he's going to heat up and knock him down, but then there's going to be, just as many games where he's not knocking down the 3. So they got to get shooting and they got to get a big man.
Yeah. I mean, it's easier said than done to be like, hey, you got to go get this, you got to get that. Cap-wise, they're in a tough spot. They got 3 guys making a lot of money right there, Curry, Butler, and Draymond. You're going to have to work around the margins. You're going to have to find some steals, some guys who are maybe underpaid but are outworking their contract type. But even added someone like Gafford, who I really like, how does Gafford fit? Because as we just said, if you got Draymond and Jimmy on the floor, that's already 2 non-shooters. Mm-hmm. Gafford is another non-shooter. So now it's like, where's the spacing coming from, that's required to make this work? Now, if you bring in Gafford and you're telling me that's your big man off the bench for about 15 to 18 minutes a night, maybe. But what they really need, I think, is they're going to need a playmaking guard off their bench so that when Steph isn't in the game, they have somebody who they know can be instant offense for them. That's what they need. In terms of their starting unit, they probably need another 3-and-D guy, a guy similar to like a Finney Smith. A guy who salary-wise isn't too expensive, but can play defense at multiple positions, can knock down some corner threes. That's probably the angle they need to go. I don't think any major changes are in the works because, again, the way this team is set up, Draymond Green is so big in initiating the offense for them. They're never going to go get a point guard. They're never going to get somebody who's going to take Draymond's spot. Yeah. So another shooter, preferably a playmaker off the bench. If you want to go with a big, fine. But again, he's not going to be part of your closing lineup. You probably need like a 6'8", 6'7", 6'8", 3-and-D guy who could play the 4 next to Draymond and can switch on defense, but also give you the floor spacing.
Will Gordon says this year will be the 7th different NBA champion in 7 years, the first time ever in a 7-year span. The NBA has to love the parity. By the way, I'm picking everything in 5 in support of Unc Team Change. Shout out to Will Gordon. That's my guy. Let me get this last.
That's a fact. And I want to say something on that point because that's a great point by Will Gordon. That was one of the reasons, remember I talked about why I thought the Knicks could beat the Celtics, because in the past 5 years, every defending champ had lost in the second round of playoffs. I don't know what's really going into that trend. I know in some of those instances, it was injuries. In some of those instances, they just ran into a hot team, like last year when Denver ran into Minnesota. Sometimes it's just bad luck. Sometimes you're just worn out, whatever the case may be. But it's not only just a parity. It also seems like the defending champs aren't even getting close to defending that championship because the second round seems to be their cap.
All right, here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Y'all got to put this on Brandon Chambers. I know some of the viewers won't like this, but what do the Lakers have to add to become maybe a contender? A defensive big man that can catch alley-oops and rebound and block a couple shots, and they need an upper echelon perimeter defender.
Well, the viewers aren't going to like this, but they might like this. If the Lakers want to become contenders, they got to hope that LeBron either retires or walks away. And that's no knock on LeBron James. This is just where we're at in his career. And if the Lakers want to truly move forward and build something around Luka, it's got to be without LeBron. Unless LeBron is willing to come back for the vet minimum. Now, if LeBron's willing to come back for the vet minimum, that's a different conversation. Yeah. But they need shooters. They need a big. They're going to need depth because this team, as currently constructed, plays no defense, has no big. And outside of Luka, they don't really have anybody else who can create his own offense. So they need a lot of pieces. And that's why I think you got to move on from LeBron so that you can actually build this around Luka.
Yeah. Let's start running through the rest of these questions. How has Paige looked in her first few games? I haven't checked the game out yet. Well, she's only played one game and she did pretty well.
I think she scored 10, right? In our opening day debut.
Yeah, she had a pretty good game. But she's on the worst team in basketball, so it's gonna be a little while before things start really clicking. Tyson, what's going on? Caitlin Clark handed flagrant foul for hard contact with Angel Reese. Thoughts? I saw the play. Yeah, if that's what they called it, as a flagrant, she did kind of push her to the ground or whatever, almost turned into something. So they did what they had to do, but that's good for the ratings. It is what it is.
I didn't think it was a flagrant foul. I thought it was a basketball play. She swiped down at the ball in her hands. I didn't think it was anything dirty about it. And I think one of the things that gets overlooked, and if right before that foul, Angel Reese actually pushes one of Caitlin Clark's teammates in the back, which allows her to get the rebound, and then Caitlin Clark swipes down in her hand to foul her. That's all she did. I didn't think it was a dirty play. Now, I'm not saying what Angel Reese did was dirty either, but everybody's making comments of the foul, which is actually on the ball and the play in the moment, but nobody's talking about what Angel Reese had done. I don't think it was a flagrant foul. I thought it was just a hard basketball foul, and that's it.
Let the ladies play. Is Angel versus Caitlin good for the WNBA? Yes, it's great for the WNBA, but we also have to be responsible with the storyline, and we cannot turn this into black versus white, because I've been seeing a lot of the idiotic commentary on random posts. We have to stay away from that and keep it as basketball player versus basketball player. This has nothing to do with their race. These are two of the better young WNBA players that are probably two of the most popular players in the WNBA. And yes, we need to push that storyline of them versus each other in a competitive nature, but we have to be responsible and leave out their race.
Yeah, I think, and I completely agree with you, Trip. I'll say this just to keep it basketball. It's only good for the ratings if both their teams are successful. If we get to a point where either one of their teams is far better than the other and it's not even competitive anymore, then it won't be good for the league because they're not the same type of player. We know that. And if, let's say, Angel Reese and Chicago are competing for championships and Caitlin Clark is barely making the playoffs, then it's not going to be good for the NBA because nobody's going to care. They both have to be good at the same time. That's what made their rivalry in college so good, that you knew they were actually competing for a national championship. If they were just playing in the first round of the tournament, nobody would have cared.
Yeah. Be honest, do y'all think Angel Reese inside don't like Caitlin? And is there some slight jealousy with Reese? No and no. I think she we can only go by what we actually can see with our own eyes, not what somebody may say or try to insinuate. I've only heard her speak positively about Caitlin Clark. And as far as the jealousy goes, trust Angel Reese don't have no reason to be jealous of Caitlin Clark. She getting too much money out in these streets, and she gets just as much praise as Caitlin Clark gets. And on top of that, at the end of the day, it comes down to wins and losses. And right now, she's still up when it comes to championships over Caitlin right now. So I don't believe she's jealous at all.
I don't believe she's jealous at all, and I think they're just two competitors, and this is getting blown out of proportion.
Exactly. All right. WNBA investigating alleged racial slurs directed at Angel Reese and Sky Fever opener. And this is what I was saying. We cannot turn this into a black versus white thing. Just base this off of them being two great competitors who are going to fight like heck every time they meet on the floor in the basketball game. All right. And I think we got like two more, and then we're gonna get up out of here.
I got to actually wrap up now, Trip.
Yeah,
I'm on daddy duty.
Oh, okay, good. All right, I'm gonna take these last two, and then I'm gonna close it out, y'all.
Hey, again, as always, I appreciate the support of Trip. Go ahead and close the show, bro.
You all ready? Did y'all see all of the smoke with Cynthia Cooper and Cheryl Miller a few weeks ago? I love how Cynthia and Cheryl keep their legacy alive doing these podcasts. I feel the legends have to do this. Yes, they do, especially on the women's side, because we have to continue to build the brand. And a lot of times that comes with the history of the game. So I love it. I love seeing Cheryl Miller speak. I love seeing Cynthia Cooper speak. I love the respect that they have for each other. I love the honesty when they speak about each other and talking about how it wasn't all just roses when they first got to college playing together, but obviously we saw what the end result of that was. So I do love that for the both of them. Brandon Chambers says, Brian Windhole says the Warriors have the assets to trade for Giannis. I'm wondering what players Warriors will want to keep. Curry, Green, and Butler. I mean, I don't know if it might have to go with two out of them three, because that's a lot of money on the cap. I don't know who else they would have that could really add up to Giannis's contract. So I'm not sure if they could keep all three of them, but it is what it is. We shall see. All right, let me see if there's any more comments that I missed over here. Trey Young, no, we got that. I think that was it. I think that's the last one right there. I bet. All right, so listen. Once again, appreciate everybody for rocking out with us today. We will be back next week. Just a couple of quick announcements before I sign off. Make sure that if you guys are in New York City on June 14th, y'all pull up to John Jay College, man. Get them tickets to Ballin' for Peace. This is the 9th annual celebrity charity basketball game hosted by Ballin' for Peace and my main man and family to the show, Haran H2O Hargrave. The dunkers were just announced for the dunk contest this year. We're gonna bring them on at some point before the actual game, or try to get a couple of them on here before the actual game. So y'all stay on the lookout for that. And again, if you guys are in the New York City area, y'all definitely got to pull up to Bowling for Peace. Make sure you're following us on all our social media, Instagram, Twitter, at Real Fan Talk, youtube.com/For the Fans Productions, facebook.com/Real Fans Real Talk. And of course, if you're not in the New York City area and you can't watch us on Verizon 43 from 8 to 9 p.m. on Thursday nights, don't worry, just go to the website, realfansrealtalk.com, click that red button on the homepage, and you can watch from anywhere in the world. And make sure you guys subscribe to the two best podcasts out here moving. That's the Real Fans Real Talk and the Sanchez Show podcast, streaming on all major platforms. With that being said, for myself, Trip Young, my brother, my co-host, Eric Sanchez, a.k.a. Legend in Two Games, we up out of here. Peace.
This is Deion Grant from the New York Giants, Super Bowl champ, and you're watching Real Fans Real Talk.
Live from the can. Vibe the king.
This is Real Fans Real Talk. Real Fans Real Talk. We as real as you thought. Real